Hi guys, I'm here with Dassima at the Hanuman retreat, Century for Ram Dass, and I've been very privileged to spend time here. And Dassi, I would love to know a bit more about you. We have had many discussions on our walk. She's looked after me, the whole crew have here. It's been really wonderful. So, you met Ram Dass, or you started following Ram Dass?
It's a pleasure having you here at Hanuman Maui, and I started following Ram Dass, in the early 90s. Yeah, I was brought up a Catholic, and after in my 20s it just didn't work for me, and then I considered myself an agnostic until my late 30s, and then I found Zen, and even Wayne Dyer had mention of Ram Dass, and I was in business, so we would pass around back at that point in the early '90s cassette tapes, and so I got a Wayne Dyer cassette tape.
I remember
package,
them. Yeah.
and he would talk about Ram Dass and how Ram Dass was an idol to him, and that he would go to see Ram Dass and just check his style and his content, and he borrowed a lot from Ram Dass. And then I started to seek out Eastern speakers like Deepak Chopra and people of that genre, and I had a book on my desk, and this gal came by and she said, "Oh, you're interested in him? I got a cassette tape at home. If I find it, I'll bring it in to you." So it was about a month later. She brought in this rickety old tape and cassette tape, and I thanked her and put it in my car as soon as I was going home. I think it was like a 90-minute cassette tape, and my drive home was 30 minutes. It was cold out, and I just sat in the car. Everything on that tape to me just sounded like, wow, this is it. This is home. This is what I've been waiting for. He would take these complex spiritual thoughts and simplify them, and with humor and humor about himself, which is really endearing. So I went back into work the next day, and didn't have the internet, but found out that he, in fact, was still living, and that he was going to speak the next month in Washington, D.C. I was living in Philadelphia, so it was like a 3-hour drive.
Yeah, right.
And so I took a couple of friends with me. We went down, and it was just he was in this auditorium. It was at George Washington University, a listener auditorium, I think, and I could just see him morphing into Maharaji, who I really didn't know who was at that point, and it was just magical for me. It was magical, and then I signed up for a week retreat at Omega, and then all of my vacation time I would use to follow him around. He just spoke to me.
Wow, he's spoken to so many people. And then it came along, we fast forward, like you connect with him, you're helping him set up the transition from tapes to CDs.
Yes.
So you become quite close to him.
Well, yeah, the thing with doing that, I was doing that for his organization.
Yeah.
And he could care less. And that wasn't, yeah. Things like money
work.
and practical things,
Yeah. And then fast forward, he had a stroke.
Yeah, so I was going to all of his, lectures. I would get on a plane and go to California for the weekend just to hear him do a lecture. But he had a stroke we went to St. John's in the Virgin Islands in 1996. It was the second year in a row that I had gone. It was the end of January, and he was there, and he was huffing and puffing a little bit, but it was still a great retreat. And evidently, he wasn't taking the blood pressure medicines that he should have been taking. And he went back home to California, and then went out for another lecture or a mini retreat. And then on February 19th, he was writing his book, Still Here,
Mm-hmm.
and he was close to having it finished, he thought. And he was working on that, and he woke up and he dreamed that he was having a stroke. But he just couldn't move, and he was also working on a radio show that would have been syndicated, and so he's waiting for the papers to come from that. And this fellow, his assistant, who lived in New Mexico, was trying to get in touch with him that day, and finally it was like towards the end of the day when he got in touch with him and knew something was wrong. I guess Ram Dass was able to answer the phone, but he wasn't able to talk, but he could tap.
Yeah.
And
nice.
he said to Lakshman, don't call the police, don't call the fire department or the ambulance. And but he did. And he called his two assistants, Marlene and Joanne, who also lived in Marin, so they went over, and at the same time the fire department came at the same time, and took him to the hospital.
Yeah.
So they didn't know whether he was going to live or die at that point. It was a massive stroke in the middle of his head, and it was a bleeding kind. And he was in his home, probably on the floor most of the day. But I remember Larry Brilliant saying, don't know. I don't think, he's probably not going to make it. It's too massive. And so he was able to regain control of the left side of his body. He was left-handed, so that was helpful. But the right side, especially his arm, he could not really move that. He could be really concentrated. And even his throat on the left side was somewhat paralyzed. So he had aphasia, and it was just amazing because he was such a beautiful, beautiful speaker, and to see him struggling so hard with his words.
Because the words are there when you've had a stroke, but they just don't come out.
Yeah, I love the analogy he gave, which was the clothing room to my words is the door is shut, but the concepts are still there. And so, those last years of his life, particularly when he got here to Maui, is when people say he really grew into being Ram Dass. He was content. Although he had a lot of pain, he didn't have much suffering, and that makes a big difference. He had neuropathy, and he had diabetes, constant urinary tract infections. He had skin cancers all over the place. He just had so many things that were going wrong with him. But he would just smile and say, I'm content, and he was really joyful. And, the aphasia that he had after the stroke, the thoughts were still there, but if you listened and relaxed into it, it was mighty powerful.
I found, because I was new to Ram Dass, and I was listening to his earlier teachings and then listening to him after the stroke, I felt there was a change in his whole being.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were lucky enough fate Maharaji Ram Dass would have it that you got to be able to be a caregiver and be a big part of his comfort and helping him help others.
Yeah, yeah. So that part of it, how I got here. When he went to India, I went to India with him that last time in 2004. It was beautiful 3 weeks.
So he had already had his stroke, but he was traveling again.
He was traveling with the wheelchair, and it was just amazing. I mean, it was so uncomfortable for him, but he was just still doing lectures. But so when we were in India, it was all of that in itself was so great to be there and realize that probably this is the last time he'll be here. And we met a bunch of people in Delhi. There was about 10 of us, 10 of us, and we got a bus. The following we stayed at the Ramada Inn, which is right at the airport, and we left the next day and journeyed on to Kenchi. And it's interesting, on our way to Kenchi, we stopped for lunch, and I had brand new equipment. I had it was a digital camera, which was just, in the process of, it was only out a couple of years, but I had a really nice Sony and a movie camera. And so we stopped for lunch, and I love water lily ponds, and I went out to take some photos, and I was bending over, and I fell in. And most of the ponds here, in the United States anyway, are fairly shallow. This one was like 5 feet deep.
Wow.
So my brand new equipment went in, and and it was dirty. I got out, and I was filthy dirty. And this driver gave me this towel that was black, and he said, "You could dry yourself with this." And I'm thinking, okay. Yeah, but anyway, so that the trip to India was beautiful, and came back, and the position I had for 17 years dissolved, and I was going to take a year and just travel and decide whether, I'm still in my late 50s, do I want to get back into the corporate world or not? There were some possible opportunities elsewhere. So I went to Brazil, and then a couple other places, and I ended up in California, and I was speaking to Ram Dass's assistants, and they said, Ram Dass, after he left India, he went to Maui, which I knew, and he stayed in California only one night, and the next day he got on a plane, another 6-hour flight to Maui. He didn't rest, but he had close to pneumonia when we were towards the end when we were in India, and he had a retreat scheduled, and of course he had to do the retreat, and it was he was sick. He was really sick, and he got some kind of urinary tract infection that turned into sepsis, and they weren't sure if he was going to make it or not. So anyway, when I went to visit his assistants, they said, well, Rita agrees with him now, but she's got to leave. She's going back to India. I don't know who could take care of him, who could be there. So I went back to my room that night, and I thought, well, who do you resonate more with in this entire universe than Ram Dass? What are you doing? You're not doing anything. Go back there and tell him tomorrow that, you would consider it. So I called him when I got up the next morning, and that evening we had dinner with some other friends of Ram Dass's, and my friend Marilyn said, next week we're going to see Ram Dass in Maui. He was out of the hospital by then. Come with us. So I went back to Philly, got some clothes, and met them in Maui, and we had beautiful dinners with Ram Dass. We were there for his 74th birthday party. We took him out for dinner, and then one night we were at dinner at his house, and in the kitchen there was one of those islands, where you prepare food, and so I was standing there, and he started chasing me around the island saying, "So, I hear you want to be my nurse." And of course I said yes, and I went back to Philadelphia again, packed some more clothes, and with the thought that I'd probably be there for about 2 months.
And how many months?
Oh, well,
How
let's
many?
see, how many? 12 times 19, 18? So, yeah, a lot of months.
Years. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And now he's not in his body, but we're still preserving his legacy at the house where he lived at for the last 14 years of his life.
yeah, and being there for him when he needed like more and more support,
Yeah.
and able to help him do the
Yeah.
nice little things like yeah.
And when I started, there was a cook in me, and he was able to, at times, help himself up to a sitting position and transfer to the chair. But and he was getting better. He was starting to walk, and he was so happy about that. And then he fell, broke his hip, and then he had a rotator cuff on his left arm,
Which is his good arm.
which is good arm, and he used his left arm to kind of help him to get up. So I still continued to help him make transfers, but it was certainly more difficult for me. And I can attest for that by my 2 knee replacements. I think that played a little
Yeah,
bit
because
of
I was
that.
going to say you wouldn't have had any formal training either.
Well, a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I certainly wasn't in the healthcare field, but yeah.
What else can I ask you? So, in his well, the whole time when I'm guessing from what I understand is that people were coming here and coming and speaking to him, and I've read through some of the journals, or there's a guest book here where people just saying, as soon as they looked at him, they got it. They got what Maharaji did for Ram Dass. They just seen that forever love. And did you find that with Ram Dass, or was it like just more like the friendship and the love?
No, he was so special. He was so special, and when he would smile, the whole world would radiate. And I have probably even more respect for him now, and when I worked for him, than I did as a person who would go and listen to his lectures. Yeah. So to me, that's a good compliment to a teacher.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, so the plan is going forward to try and preserve this sanctuary for him.
Yes.
And what can people do as a community to support?
Mm-hmm. Well, here on Maui, we have some people that come over, and they're very helpful. They give their time, and that's beautiful. It's the house that Ram Dass lived in is it's getting old. It's probably about 35 years old, but the problem is it's right by the water, so things disintegrate. All steel rust and wood warps, and so it's
Grounds to maintain?
yeah.
Or?
It's on 5 acres, so making sure that that all of the plants. Ram Dass loved plants, so the place we were staying was a horse farm,
Yeah, right.
and there were a couple palm trees. That's about it. But when we got in, I made it one of my jobs to
Planned it out.
plant. Yeah. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
There are so many flowers here. So many flowers. You know,
And so if, people would like to help, they could send in donations to info@hanumanmaui.org, or they could come and do, as you did, a personal retreat.
Oh my gosh, that I would recommend to anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
Really great. And I can see by the books that everybody leaves feeling grateful here and now, which I haven't been able to do for a long time. So I was that caught up in work, and yeah, and now I feel like here I am again. Here is who I want to be.
Yeah.
And you had a big impact on that.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, yeah.
Is there anything, like, please, if you can, give anything, do whatever you can. Is there anything, advice, that you would like to give to people just from your perspective as a human being?
Wow.
She wasn't expecting this one.
Yeah. So, I think what you're working on this week is an extremely important trait to work on, to being present to the here and now, to this moment. And one of the things that was really helpful to me in that area was the last year of Ram Dass's life. In 2019, he went through the gamut of pain and suffering, and it was a roller coaster. So I've realized early on that what I had to do is not think about the future or think about the past or what infection was coming up today or was he going to make it? Was today his last day on earth for this incarnation? So I struggled with that the entire year of trying not to look too much in the future or in the past or and really, and when you know that you're in the moment, it's so rewarding. It's just, you get rid of all that anxiety you have, and it's.
And you're looking the other human being, looking at each other. You're connecting. Yes. I'm here. Yes. We're here together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be one thing. And another thing is, I loved Ram Dass's concept of loving awareness. I remember back in the probably 2012, something like that. He started working on that concept of I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. He felt that you had to start with yourself. He always felt you had to start with yourself. Make sure you were fine before you tried to help somebody else. So, and then he'd say, do that meditation of I am loving awareness, and then take it to just loving awareness, so that you could send it out to other people as well. When he was first working on that concept, he was invited to give a talk at this Indian restaurant here on Maui, Monsoon, and a big old Indian restaurant. And a dear friend of his, Mickey Lemley, was with us, and Mickey did the movie Fierce Grace, which is the first movie about Ram Dass. And so they had been friends since the 70s, and so Ram Dass was talking about loving awareness, and he said, the ceiling is beautiful. I love the ceiling. Look at the walls. Look how they're set. Aren't they nice? And this rug, even this rug, I love it. I really love it. And when we got out into the car, Mickey said, Ram Dass, I can't believe you're doing this. You're talking about loving a rug, this inanimate thing that is full of curry and dirty, and you're saying you love that as much as you love me, and we've been friends since the 70s. So, but working on that concept of loving awareness.
I'm just going to interrupt that. Where is that rug, that piece of rug now?
So when Mickey came back, did I tell you this story?
No, but somebody pointed it out to you.
Yeah, so when Mickey came back for his 80th birthday, for Ram Dass's 80th birthday, he brought a present, and it was wrapped in nice wrapping paper, and he opened it up, and there was this little piece of rug about this big, and it had smears all over it, which I guess was curry, and Mickey said, "Well, I thought you could put this up and put a blessing cloth by it as well, because and you can take down the pictures of Maharaji, because you'll love this rug as much as you love Maharaji." So that was sweet, and that was right when we were talking last night when Oprah Winfrey was here, and we pointed that it was right after. Yeah, that was right before she came, and she looked at the rug and, oh, okay.
Well, thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. Yes.
Thank you. And she made that easy for me, so that's great.
Oh.
Anything else that you want to share?
Oh, come visit us.
Yeah, absolutely do
Yeah.
it. Absolutely do it. And, they made it a little bit easier for me. I paid as I could, so I paid in chunks, so that was very helpful for me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. And it's been such a pleasure getting to know you. You're a wonderful human being.
Oh, thank you. Love to all.